What's up, Bills Mafia? I am your host, Devin Long, and this is the Down South Bills podcast. Before we get started, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the podcast. It really helps the pod grow. We just hit 200 subscribers, and the podcast has only been going for about 10 months, so I'm really proud of that and excited to see how far we can take this thing. Today, I'm going to do a deep dive into the new 2026 Bills defense, what Jim Leonhard's scheme could look like, how Buffalo's personnel can fit into it, and which players I think could really benefit from the scheme change. So let's get into it. So obviously, there's going to be a new defense. Sean McDermott ran a 4-3 defense, and this is going to be a 3-4 defense under Jim Leonhard. That basically means that Sean McDermott had 4 defensive linemen and 3 linebackers in the base, and Jim Leonhard will have 3 down linemen and 4 linebackers in the base. But the 4 linebackers, 2 of them will be basically pass rushers, which will be Greg Rousseau and Bradley Chubb, and their primary backups will be TJ Parker and Michael Hoyt. But getting into the new defensive coordinator, Jim Leonhard, he was a defensive coordinator at Wisconsin. He was also the defensive pass game coordinator at the Broncos last season, and he was also the assistant head coach for the Denver Broncos for a couple of years. So he had his imprint on that Denver Broncos defense while we were playing against them a little bit. Yes, he did. But we'll obviously have a completely different philosophy on defense. This is going to be more aggressive, more attacking. Sean McDermott's defense was, hey, more read and react. What do you see? And then I do this based on what I see. Jim Leonhard's defense is, hey, you have an assignment and you go do that regardless of what the offense does. And hey, sometimes like that, you're going to get beat, but also sometimes like that, you're going to have big plays and you're going to get stops on third down like the Bills have not been doing. So the biggest question is, do the Bills actually have the personnel to make this work? But what stands out about Jim Leonhard's defense is obviously, as I mentioned, it wants to attack. There's multiple fronts. There's versatility. There's a 3-4 structure. So there's going to be basically like, think of it this way with the players. In the middle, there's going to be like a Deion Walker, then an Ed Oliver beside him. And on the other side of Deion Walker, there's going to be Landon Jackson, a TJ Sanders. And then on the outsides, there's going to be an a Greg Rousseau, and a Bradley Chubb. And so there's going to be 5 down linemen down there. So against the run, we're going to have 5 linemen against your 5 linemen, and then we're going to have our linebackers filling in. So that, I mean, schematically, that just obviously has to play better against the run. And then on the back end, that is going to cause a little bit more man coverage. But hey, I believe we have the guys to play that man coverage as well. So what I'm most excited about is the pressure packages. And as I mentioned, the man coverage. But we're going to get into the players as well and just see how they individually fit into this scheme. So starting off with the defensive line and Ed Oliver, he was injured last year, but when healthy, Ed Oliver is a difference maker. And I think he has a better supporting cast around him. Daquan Jones was on the older side. Deion Walker is an emerging star. And then we obviously had Greg Rousseau, who continues to get better. And I think when you switch out a Joey Bosa for a Bradley Chubb, I believe, is the better performer when healthy. And I just think that wholeheartedly. And so then I also take that into account with adding one more lineman down there and a young guy like Landon Jackson, who has put on a little bit of weight and can play in multiple spots and has a skill set that will really open up what things can happen for Ed Oliver. Even Jim Leonhard said it in some of his press conferences, hey, Ed Oliver is going to get more one-on-ones, and that's going to lead to him being in the quarterback's lap, which isn't good for the opposing team. But then getting into Deion Walker, I think it's going to be a massive year for Deion Walker in year 2. He has the size, he has the power, and as Greg Thompson says he's a large human. He looked dominant versus the Panthers, only played 10 snaps, but looked like he played about 30. Leonhard raved about him on Tuesday before the open practice, and Deion Walker has lost weight, and I think he's just going to be a pretty good anchor for this team. We also picked up Greg Gaines, who is going to be a nose tackle, has some experience, was on that 2021 Rams team, and he's just a nose tackle, like a space eater, and he's not going to be too dominant, but as your nose tackle number 2 and not having to rely on 5 Mathis, suspended 3 games, or Dwayne Carter, who's been kind of up and down, I think that's going to be a very good thing to have some depth behind Deion Walker and also allow Deion Deion Walker to play that 4-eye spot and play beside where he usually is, and then also cause some havoc for some guards and some tackles in that way. And so also getting into Landon Jackson next, who I mentioned before, second-year player, put on a little bit of weight, had some really nice preseason reps, and also ran with the ones with Jim Leonhard, which Jim Leonhard mentioned. Why he ran with the ones is because he's been showing a little bit of improvement and just getting better throughout the summer. I'm excited about his continued development and just excited about the player. But the biggest question, I believe, on that defensive line is, do they have a dominant interior presence? I believe they have two, Deion Walker and then also Ed Oliver. But both of those guys are pretty much known as pass rush guys, so hoping Deion Walker, as he showed in the preseason game, can be a lot better against the run as well. Getting into the edge position, Bradley Chubb, I mentioned before, a veteran, and when healthy, he is very good. He has a high motor. He's good against the pass. He's good against the run, and he's just a good leader, good guy to have in the locker room. The thing with him is the health, but playing on grass, I think is going to be good. And just, the vibes are high. I can't predict, injuries. So just have to hope for the best when it comes to the health of these guys. Greg Rousseau, versatile player. I think he can be maximized in this new scheme. He's also good against the run, but I think he's a sneaky good sack guy. Double-digit upside, I believe, especially in this defense where he's going to be freed up, more one-on-ones across the board. I believe Greg Rousseau can create some havoc in this defense. Michael Hoyt, versatile. He fits the 3-4 scheme and can play multiple spots. Last year in the limited action that we did see him, he played multiple spots and he wreaked havoc. TJ Parker, pick 35, power rusher, great hands, and he already had a sack in preseason. I feel like he does need to use his power a little bit more, especially again in the NFL. You're a young guy, you need to know that you have to use your power, especially when things like bend aren't your strong suit. The pass rush moves are good, but sometimes you need to be able to, push a guy on his butt. Just run through a guy. And I think TJ Parker has that skill set. And I think playing with guys like Bradley Chubb and Greg Rousseau who do that for a living, I think he's going to be able to pick up some of those traits and some of those tips and tricks to be able to consistently win. But the biggest question is, how does Leonhard rotate all these guys? I think he's going to start with the obvious two, Greg Rousseau and Bradley Chubb, and TJ Parker and Michael Hoyt are going to get their fair share of run. But behind that, is it Javon Solomon? Is it Mike Dana? Let me know in the comments who you think it should be. I think it should be Mike Dana just because he's a veteran, but I do see the upside with a guy like Javon Solomon because he is a younger guy. Getting into the cornerback position, Christian Benford needs no introduction except to maybe the rest of the league because he doesn't make the top 10 corner list. He's like an 82 on Madden or something like that. And I don't even think he made top 25 corner. So Christian Benford gets disrespect. He's played well against guys like Jamar Chase, locked up guys like Nico Collins. So I think, let's get Christian Benford his respect here. But I'm not going to rave on that too long. We'll get into the next guy, Maxwell Harrison. Second year for him, the fastest guy in his draft. I think right now he's the CB2, very speedy guy. He's young. The thing with him is the injuries. And people say, hey, he was a zone corner at Kentucky. Kentucky ran a zone scheme. They're not going to change their scheme just for one corner. So, yes, he ran zone. But Jim Leonhard said in one of his press conferences, hey, Maxwell Harrison is a man corner. And so I'm going to take what the defensive coordinator says over just him playing zone corner in college. But, hey, that's just me. D. Alford, slot corner from the Atlanta Falcons, now on the Bills. He has some versatility to play outside corner as well, and I think that's going to be vital because CB4 right now is undrafted free agent Kanai Walker, I believe, or seventh round rookie Toriano Pride. And we know what happened when Tre'Davious White went out of the game in the Broncos game and we gave up a touchdown. So I don't want to have a shaky corner coming in late in the game because we don't have depth. So nice to know that D. Alford can kick outside, and then Jordan Hancock, who's the backup slot, can come take on that role. And even C.J. Gardner-Johnson has some versatility in the slot. So I think having a lot of those guys who have versatility is huge. Davison Igbinosun, a rookie, he's a long physical corner. But he also has some press man ability. I think that's his main skill set is press man ability, but he's very handsy. And me personally, I don't too much like handsy corners. I know you have to there's a certain extent to kind of hey, the ref's not going to call it every time, but I don't like playing that game, and having to get 10 pass interferences in a year, and then him, like, what I'm saying, like that costs you, like that's a spot of the ball foul, like that's 30-40 yards sometimes. So I don't necessarily love that. I saw him kind of holding guys in training camp, didn't love that, but he played pretty good with the ones against the Panthers, and I cannot deny that. No matter how crazy my biases are, like I can't deny when you play good on film. I will never deny that. And Davis and Igmanosin looked good on film against the Panthers in the preseason. And so I think that's really good that a guy drafted for this defense early second round pick, was a guy who can contribute in that way and be someone who looks good against the likes of Tedero and McMillan and Xavier Legette, those type guys. So getting into Kani Walker, had an interception versus Carolina, making a CB4 case, has some experience with Jay Valai, the new cornerbacks coach, undrafted, but I think he's ahead of Toriano Pride, who's had some struggles throughout camp and has some struggles in that Panthers preseason game. The biggest question is obviously the depth, but I think if D. Alford is going to be CB4, I think the depth is solid. Getting a guy like Tre'Davious White may help, yes, but Tre'Davious White doesn't play special teams, so then you're in that dilemma again and trying to put him on the practice squad, and he probably doesn't want to do that type thing. So, yeah, hoping that the cornerback depth is fine, but if it's not, hoping that a guy like Tre'Davious White stays on the market, so then maybe we can bring him in mid-season if we do indeed need his services. Linebacker depth, probably my biggest concern. Why didn't we add more like a Shaq Thompson, who just had a tryout with the Patriots? They also had a tryout with Daquan Jones. Weird, trying to steal our players, but whatever. I think Daquan Jones is pretty washed, but that's a story for another day. Terrell Bernard, Dorian Williams, Caleb Alarms, but who's linebacker for after that? That rhymed. Wasn't trying to do that, but that was kind of funny there. Terrell Bernard, I think he's the solid starter here. Jim Leonhard said in his press conference yesterday before the open practice that Dorian Williams and Caleb Alarms are indeed fighting for that second linebacker spot. I think 3 linebackers were pretty good there, but I think linebacker 4 is a question mark. Caleb Alarms had a bad PI against the Panthers. Dorian Williams has his strengths, has his weaknesses, but did lead the Bills in tackles 2 years ago. So he does have some starter upside. So having a solid starter, basically like someone who, I think Dorian Williams is a guy who can start for you but doesn't have much upside. He's just like a solid starter. And I think having a solid starter at linebacker isn't the end of the world, especially in this NFL where pass rush and I believe secondary are the more important things there. What happens if injuries hit, though? I think we're in some trouble. I think we need to sign maybe a linebacker 4 who can play some special teams to kind of shore up that depth there. But I think other than that, Bernard, if he's healthy, he's going to be very, very good. I think the upside is there with Alarms to be a starter at some point. Not sure if it's this year, but if it is this year, I'm going to assume he's ready because I think Jim Leonhard has pretty good judgment. Getting into the safeties, Cole Bishop, year 3, I think he needs no introduction. I think he's a breakout candidate. I think everybody knows he's a breakout candidate. He's athletic, versatile, had a crazy one-hand interception last year, had an interception against the Chiefs, some pretty big sacks, some pretty good hits. He's just that aggressive guy that you want in the back end. Having, a safety in a Sean McDermott defense was a big thing, and I think that's why he ended up getting Cole Bishop and developing Cole. But he did a great job developing Cole Bishop. I can't deny that. But the biggest thing with Cole Bishop, just like Maxwell Harrison, is those injuries, hoping he can stay healthy. But I'm really excited to see him in Jim Leonhard's defense. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, perfect personality for this aggressive defense. He's versatile. He can play deep. I think that's his best position. He can come down. He can also play the slot as well, though. And he can cover. I like that versatility with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And he's won all the places he's been. So I hope that trend continues here and he wins here. He won a Super Bowl with the Eagles, went to one with the Eagles, and I hope he can at least take us to one. Not take us to one. That's obviously going to be Allen and the whole team. But I hope that trend continues. DeMar Hamlin, experience and depth. I think DeMar Hamlin is a solid safety 4 because he plays special teams, and that helps. Geno Stone, not much of a fan of him. He is a recent starter, but I do like DeMar Hamlin a little bit more. Geno Stone, silly face mask penalty that cost us a drive against the Panthers. Then gave up an inside slant on the goal line. He isn't a corner, so that doesn't terrify me too much, but they're going to run an inside slant on the goal line. That's pretty much like the thing that teams do, especially like preseason when you're not game planning. I'm just thinking they're probably going to run a slant here, but whatever. Jordan Hancock, interesting because of his versatility. Another second-year player, more of a slot corner now, training in that spot, and I think he's playing good in that spot as the preseason indicated. But again, the preseason, don't want to overreact. But I think he's a guy who can definitely play the slot if D. Alford needs to kick outside in an emergency. Also, C.J. Gardner-Johnson can do that as well. Jalen Kilgore, a rookie, but he's playing safety now, and he was playing slot corner at Carolina, so he's adapting to the position a little bit. But he's very athletic, has a lot of upside, and I think he's going to develop well for the Bills. I think the biggest question is could this safety group be a strength of this defense? And I think it absolutely could. I think the depth we're pretty much 4 or 5 deep at safety. And I think that's a pretty good position to be in, especially when some of these guys play special teams. But overall, who fits this personnel scheme? Who fits this scheme as far as personnel? I think the guys who really fit, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Christian Benford, Cole Bishop, Ed Oliver, Bradley Chubb, Greg Rousseau, Deion Walker, and Michael Hoyt. I think these guys fit seamlessly because of their versatility and also just their overall skill sets. The guys I'm watching, Igbinosun, can he carve out a role and not get PI all the time? Maxwell Harrison, can he indeed handle this man coverage? I believe he can, but some of the physical receivers could maybe give him a little bit of trouble because he's on the smaller side. Dorian Williams, does he beat out Caleb Alarms or you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a thing about getting beat out by a rookie, but you know what I'm saying? He is a free agent next year. So if he ends up being the linebacker 3 and playing some special teams, that's not the end of the world. Bernard, hoping he can play free and just do no thinking, because if he does, I think he's going to be a great player in this defense as well, because he's already a great player and he's pretty highly paid. So I think we need to make sure he's a hit and doesn't get injured too much. But as I said before, can't predict those injuries. My biggest concerns are obviously linebacker depth and can we get off the field on third down? With Sean McDermott, it was always hard to get off the field on third down in those zones. That's why I'm very excited about the man coverage, because those zones, like, players are too smart, receivers are too smart, quarterbacks are too smart, coordinators are too smart for you to be running third down, for you to be running zone every third down. It's just too easy to beat. But yeah, the Panthers game, 3 straight 3-and-outs, tackling looked excellent, run defense looked better, the man coverage looked tight. That was a promising first look, but it's also just the preseason. So I don't want to draw too many conclusions. We obviously have the Cleveland joint practice tomorrow, starters versus starters. There's more competition, better test of the scheme. The Bills will be without probably Keon Coleman, who was in a walking boot yesterday. Shakir didn't practice yesterday. DJ Moore only did individuals. Skylar Bill was out again. And so it was basically the Josh Palmer show with the tight ends. So, but overall, my expectations for this defense, I think they'll be more aggressive, more pressure, more versatility, better run defense, and hopefully more turnovers. But we do need help. We do need health, and I think linebacker depth, it does worry me. Hopefully we pick somebody up if we need somebody, if they feel we need somebody. I'm not the coach, obviously, but I do think the linebacker depth could be better. And I think the young guys need to develop. Those guys like Maxwell Harrison, Deion Walker. I think those guys absolutely have to hit. And whoever's playing beside Terrell Bernard, I think they need to hit as well. But as long as Maxwell Harrison and Deion Walker hit, and I think Deion Walker's pretty much a slam dunk. I think Maxwell Harrison, we'll see how he plays and if he's healthy. But I think those are pretty much the holes on the defense. If we have any holes, I think I'm pretty confident with the team. But I think that linebacker beside Terrell Bernard, Maxwell Harrison, and Deion Walker, those spots right there are pretty much going to determine if this defense is top 10 or not. I think this defense can definitely be top 16, top 15, but I think this defense could definitely be top 10 if Deion Walker is who we think he is, and that corner opposite Christian Benford and that linebacker opposite Terrell Bernard balls out. But overall, I'm really excited to see what this defense can do under Jim Leonhard. There are definitely some questions. There's questions with every team, every position group on, you know what I'm saying? There's questions everywhere in the NFL, but I think this defense has enough talent to be very, very exciting in 2026. But let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, go Bills.